Korea's over, and Griffin got blasted. So it's not looking good for power rankings, but for us, we chose SKT to win the split. So, whew, we got lucky on that one, didn't we? So, all right. So before we actually talk about MSI, Korea's I think the last place to deal with, unless you want to talk about China. But China, man, Invictus Gaming, first split in like 8 years. That is crazy.
It's not really crazy because they were expected to win.
A lot of people had RNG winning the split too.
No one did. If you had RNG winning the split, you didn't watch China. You saw a lot of things that
NA.
Well, I mean, Uzi didn't look nearly as good as last year. There's just way too many things that would put RNG nowhere near the top.
But they have Amazing Jay. He's really amazing.
Really amazing.
Gosh. All right. So the finals for LCK basically happened, and we haven't got a chance to talk about them before you talk about MSI. So. It's hard to say. There's so many rumors. There's so much stuff to really go off of. If you go by just actual gameplay leading in to the actual finals, SKT looked really off when they played Kingzone, so you probably thought Griffin could have maybe challenged them to win the split again. Or
I don't know if I'd agree with that fully. I think they looked pretty good going into the Kingzone. I just think Kingzone's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for. Kingzone had the single best ADC in the league. I think he was better than Teddy this year quite a bit. Pawn was playing extremely well this year. I mean, there isn't a single weak link on this Kingzone team. Plus, they had 1 to 2 superstars. So I think that it was expected that Kingzone could put up a fight against them.
So you have SKT beating Kingzone, and Griffin gets auto qualified into the finals because they got first place. And then first game they played Pantheon support. Well, okay. I don't know what you were possibly thinking doing that, but. Here's the thing, is that a lot of teams going in scrimming, Griffin said SKT were just dominating in scrims against Griffin, and you felt like watching the series, Griffin didn't feel like they could play standard against SKT and win sufficiently throughout the course of the series. So, and that's pretty much how it felt to me. I don't know how it felt to you.
I mean, realistically, I think if you watch just towards the end of the split, just looking at who was coming on the incline and who was looking worse, it was pretty obvious that SKT was looking better by the end of the year. So I wasn't, like, again, I do understand the thought process behind, like, trying to pick around less, conventional supports and all these type of, but I do think, like, again, they were trying to play around the early game because they don't play strong enough in the later half or the team fighting phase for them to be able to beat SKT. So I can see why they'd want to try and get past that part of the game, try and take a lead toward the beginning with weird supports that they might not know how to play around, but I don't think that's their playstyle, honestly. I think that Lehans is not that type of support. I think he's more so an engaging support. I don't like him on the Pantheon support, which really his only engage is ult and W, which, again, ult is pretty decently obvious what's going to happen, and then W is pretty useless as anything past early game because you're jumping in as a pretty squishy character, and it's a 1.5, I can't remember how much, and you have to go face first into them, so you're dead regardless.
So what made you think caused Griffin to mentally collapse?
I mean, it was
even though they're in first place and they got first place and they get a chance to prepare for the finals.
They were in first place, but I think the lack of people believing that they could win the series was a big factor in it. I think on top of the fact that, again, they just were the worst team. I think by the end of the split, they were probably the third best team in Korea.
They had started falling off after they lost to Genji.
Right, the game after the SKT series. Even the second SKT series itself was kind of an indicator of where the season was going.
Yeah.
SKT was coming back into form, and
Genji beat them.
Yeah, Griffin also looked worse in that series. I think that if you want to look back, that's probably the indicator of where, like, right after their 1 to 2 week break before.
Yeah, because Griffin was already. Teams, the way it's scheduled in the LCK is that, like, at certain points, the certain teams just won't play for a couple of weeks because just like how the schedule works. My big indicator of how weak they looked was because of the Genji series. They disrespectfully did ban any power picks and let Ruler completely just beat them. And then after that, when they could have beat Afrika, they lost to Afrika. And then after that, I feel like the Genji series was a clear indicator of It's this happens in sports a lot. Football, hockey, baseball, basketball. There's a team that starts off really, really hot, like the Rams did last year. They started off like 9-0.
Hey, they made it to the Super Bowl still.
But at a certain point, you start seeing cracks in their armor, and I think that it happens for every single league, no matter what. Like you have a team that starts off really well, and then once other teams start synergizing really well, that could beat them. That can show that we saw that in the SKT series first, and then you saw that. I don't know how the Genji thing happened still. I don't count that really, but I guess you have to go with that. But in the finals, I think people are just gonna look at SKT and kind of overrate them, even though they did play pretty well toward the later end of the split. Because I don't think people severely watched the LCK like they did back a few years ago, because of how the LCK has marginally looked worse. Like I think this was the LCK's worst looking split I've seen in a while.
I think last split was by far and away the worst.
Oh, I thought this one was terrible.
Yeah, but the entirety of the last season, they had one decent team.
No, it was KT and Griffin, right?
Griffin was good for one singular split, and they weren't that good. They were an up and coming who was working. Again, the game wasn't fully centralized around early game aggression at that point, and Griffin was only functioning around that if they lost the lead, which they didn't often. But they were dominated by KT every single time, which I think was the only singular good team in the Korean League last year. But the entirety of last season, I think
these past two splits have been really bad.
I don't know.
And so I feel like people are going to go into MSI kind of overrating SKT, not because they're bad. That's not what I mean by overrating. It's like just because the name SKT, they're going to assume like, well, they were just dominant the whole split. No, SKT had a lot of problems, and even from that Kingzone series, they had a lot of problems too. So going in, I think people are going to slightly overrate them, and then be surprised when other teams like IG and teams like G2 can beat them, because I do feel like SKT can be beaten by teams like that, by the strengths that they haven't shown or weren't able to really get sufficiently challenged by, because they were challenged with Griffin. Griffin kind of was like, we're done. Our steam ran out.
I'm going to be one of those people that you're talking about overrating SKT, because I do think they're going to dominate this split. I do think they're going to dominate at MSI pretty hard. I don't think... Again, G2 doesn't have the players to match up. On top of the fact they are not smart enough past laning phase to be able to beat them. IG is similar in some aspects, but they have better players. But again,
we kind of said that last year with KT, IG too, didn't we?
Well, yeah, I understand. I think that KT again.
But you would have IG favored over G2 to beat them if they was happening.
Yeah, of course. I think that IG would probably smash G2.
Oh yeah.
I think that
Shy is probably the best player coming into the event. That's who I would put. But
I think it's very. That's definitely not impossible. He's definitely in the top 3.
Also, what do you feel like how the SKT series, like who was the MVP? Like they gave it to Faker, but I would have given it to like Connor Clid. Connor and Clid have been playing amazing. I think people just give it to Faker because it's just Faker. Like I don't think people like really watch the game sufficiently enough to see that.
You're gonna give it to the best player on SKT?
Yeah.
I think the best player, honestly, I think Clid was one of the most explosive, but I think you would have to give it to the bot lane. Both of the players were pretty great this year towards the end of the split, and I think they're one of the biggest reasons as to why, like, you saw them outclassing Griffin in the bot lane was the biggest reason as to why Griffin couldn't keep up.
So, what do you think goes with Griffin now? They haven't won 2 splits now. They've been to the finals two splits in a row. And what do you think is going to happen with Griffin now? Do you make a roster move?
I would not suggest a roster move. The players themselves aren't a problem. I think their mentality towards the later half of the split was a big problem. I think not only that, I think their coaching staff is a big question mark, because they did not, like, obviously the Pantheon support was an aggressive move, but it wasn't a smart one.
I would say it's more of a cheese strat.
It wasn't just cheese. I think it was more. Well, I give cheese was a big portion of it.
I feel like after that cheese strat doesn't work, you need to stop doing it.
Well, I mean, they probably worked it out in scrims as one of the few ways they beat SKT, maybe, or maybe they didn't play it against SKT and SKT had been able to smash every other one of their strategies. I don't know, but I'm assuming it's one of those cases. I don't like Griffin's inability to play around the map besides early game regret. Like, again, it's an aggressive early game strategy that's not going to work out really well, like against some of the other like elite teams of the league, like IG. IG is really early game aggressive, and I don't even think they're better than Kingzone at this point. So I don't have a lot of hope going into Griffin going in the next split, I don't think they're going to do nearly as well, but I do think they're still going to make playoffs, obviously. They're better than the bottom half.
They're better than... See, the thing with Griffin is that they're better than most of their competition right now. That's the thing they still have. But mentality, I feel like because one of the games in game 2, they didn't look like bad. One of the games they actually had an early game lead. So you're factoring into yourself, how bad does that look on you? Is that you're playing good in the game? Like, they felt like they couldn't play standard against SKT. They played standard in all the series they beat SKT in, even the second one they played around.
Well, I mean, let's be realistic. I think that the biggest reason as to why that pulled off is because SKT was just coming into form. I think everybody really did realize SKT came back into form at the very end of the split. SKT was the best team in the league. I think Griffin kind of realized that, and they realized they couldn't continually beat them the same way, so they tried to play around a different way.
Sword's not that good. I feel like Sword's the weakest player of the team. People say it's Lehans. Lehans is not weakest Sword. Sword is just a big problem.
You saying big when he's probably top 5 at his role.
I mean, he can't really play carry. He's like Impact for...
He's way better
LCK.
than Impact, though.
But he's only really good on tanks. He's
definitely not terrible in carries. I think he's better than the level at which you're putting him at is definitely lower than he is. I think he's comparable to a lot of players, at the very least. He's not as good as Nuguri on carries, but Nuguri can only play carries.
Now, what if Flame went to Griffin? Now, that'd be a good team.
Flame isn't good enough to...
He just hates Flame.
Flame is good on tanks, and I think that, in general, I think that Sword is still a better player than him.
So overall, the LCK was over. But now looking at SKT going into MSI, how do you think they'll be challenged at all?
I think that we're gonna see either. Well, I mean, again, I don't know how well SKT is gonna play going into the season. Honestly, like again, we don't know if they're gonna come back playing how well they did in the
because
playoffs.
it's a completely different patch going into MSI.
I think that tanks are gonna be more relevant, which is gonna be a big impact on
because
this
Khan's strength is not tanks.
It's definitely not.
Khan's strength is. Khan is like a great white shark. They have to move forward. They don't move backwards. Khan can't go sideways either. Sharks only move forward, and Khan can't go backwards or sideways. He says, I go this way once, and that's how I'm going.
I like that analogy. That was really cool.
And do you know that if a shark gets flipped over, it's called imatomic immobility? You just can't move. Yes, that's what Khan is.
I did not know that. Did you? Is that really true?
Yeah. Killer whales, when they attack a shark, they hit it over. They flip it over. And when a shark's flipped over, it cannot move. They get into this weird stasis of like paralyzation. That's what I'm talking about for Khan, is that he's pretty much immobile past playing a carry. So it's going to be a big detriment in draft phase. If you ban a few carries, he's not going to be... It's going to be a big flexibility point.
Again, there's not like a lack of carries. I was really... Because they're extremely buff in Fiora too.
Oh, that was one of the best champions.
The biggest problem with it, not only that, they're extremely buffing Bramble Vest, which is going to be... They're tripling the amount of healing reduction or Mortal Reminder amount. So it's going to be a really big problem from her. Like, I do think that it's going to be... Like, if they pick into the carry situation, I think Fioras are going to be possible. I mean, into the tanks, but the Bramble Vest is really going to kind of halt her spike because it's a really big counter to her.
Now you have... The problem with SKT is, I think... A lot of teams are it's not really necessarily a problem because of what the players look like. Faker hasn't really played at his prime level this split at all. He's kind of played
I agree with that.
Better than everybody else, but not
better than everybody else.
He's been
really
like Chovy was, I think, still the best mid laner of the split.
I think of the split in general, but not at the end. I don't think Chovy was nearly at the top of
But Faker hasn't, like, if you looked at the way he played against Griffin, he played like the old Faker. But you don't know which type of Faker you're going to get. One that's going to play supportive, one that's going to play like Lissandra.
I think that's a good thing, actually. The fact that he's so versatile that you don't know what he's going to do. There's an inability for the team to kind of ban him out because he plays every function of the like role you want him to play, he's able to play.
He can play the mega carry, the supportive guy. That's the thing, though, is that good enough for teams that can expose that? Because you can be really flexible, but if you're not good at every single flexibility part, then that can be a problem in an actual game.
I agree with that. I think the thing about it is, I do think SKT is that good. I think they are able to play most situational like things. I think that most of the like types of games they're going to be able to play are going to be mostly due to the fact that Faker is flexible enough to let the type of strategy function because he's able to play that. So I do think that a lot of the teams are going to struggle around trying to stop them around the map. Like I don't see it. Like again, I think the way they're gonna play around IG is gonna probably be again. They're gonna put another carry in the top lane, and it's gonna be a dueling thing. And I think Khan is able to, at the very least, hold his own. I don't think
the IG versus SKT is gonna be the most hyped matchup I've ever seen in a while.
it's gonna come down to the top lane. Obviously, I think that Rookie is just not playing well enough right now to.
He's not playing at his MVP form like last year.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, again, I think that both of Faker. I mean, Faker's playing better than he did last year.
Yeah, it's weird though. They kind of take like a reverse swap.
Urso is Rookie's playing slightly worse. I think that it's gonna come down to the top lane and the bottom lane. I think Jackie Love's gonna be a very big problem because
he really starts pulling off the wild turtle moments.
I don't think he's that bad. I think he's still one of the better ADCs in. I don't know if I'd say that. He was a good ADC this year, but he was top 3 last year.
But I mean, like, China is known for their really good ADCs in their league.
Well, the problem is that he degraded definitely. I think Jackie Love is definitely worse than he was last year.
He's the Chinese Tyler 1.
I don't think so.
But that's pretty much it for that MSI, the Griffin series. Do you think SKT moving into the next summer split will actually just be first place?
I think they're going to dominate next split. I think that they're going to have a hard time with Kingzone, in my opinion, to be honest.
I don't know, because I feel like one of those teams that made playoffs is not going to do as well. It's either going to be Griffin or Kingzone.
Kingzone looked really good at the end of the year, and they looked really good in the series against SKT. I don't think it's them.
And then you have... Okay, and the last thing... I think someone wanted to ask us, what do you think of LCK's playoff format?
I think their playoff... Again, I think the best format in the entire league, out of all of the regions, is going to be LECs. I think LEC has the best playoff format, and I'd really like to see that implemented around the league. Because I'd like the function of you get to see 2 best-of-5s against the best teams in the league. Or at the very least, the 2 top-ranked teams.
And that at least shows you who's the best team.
Yeah, and your top 2, like, it's more so, your top 2 ranking means a lot more now. Because you can lose a series and still be in the league, where so as everybody else has to win. I think that
LCK's is probably the worst.
I would say...
Because, like, the point, like, getting getting into a best-of-5, it's a best-of-3. Like,
I understand it.
That's really bad.
I think that the fact is you have less teams in the playoffs, which I don't like that much. I don't
know why it's not 6.
It's 5 because they want to put the what's it called? They put 2 teams against each other and then 1-1-1.
Yeah, like in hindsight that makes sense, but why can't the first match just change the first match to a best-of-5, not best-of-3? Please?
I think that if they're gonna have a regular, I think that the best thing for them would be to change the NA format at the very least.
I feel like the NA format would be fine for them.
NA format should be standard, and if they want to improve the quality, I think everybody should swap to the LEC one because it really is indefinitely the best one.
And I think the last, that's pretty much it. Oh, the MVP thing. We talked about the MVP thing a lot before the season started with Korea, saying it was kind of like necessarily corrupted. Because the game Chovy got MVP, he was like, what, 0-2-2 on Zoe? Something like that. And then my personal MVP was either going to be Deft or was going to be Tarzan. I don't think, I said Chovy was going to be really good, but I mean, that's not really what that day should have implemented. Deft was playing absolutely incredible the whole split. So was Tarzan. Tarzan was the reason why they probably won a good majority of all their games. Probably a lot of them.
Chovy did have a really gigantic impact at the beginning of the year.
But that game he won MVP.
That one is obviously just terrible.
Because Deft played amazing right after that.
Well, I mean, he still would have been in first. He would have been tied for first place instead of in first place.
Yeah. Because Ruler was up there too.
Yeah. Ruler was great this year, though.
I felt bad for Ruler.
Ruler was an incredible player this year.
Man, could you imagine if Ruler was on SKT?
Why would you want to switch out Teddy?
They're both good. You got to get what you can take, I guess.
You're going to put him in top lane?
I might as well. Jokes. All right, so yeah, MVP covered, series covered, MSI. Is SKT going to dominate the next split? I'm pretty sure SKT is going to be at least top 2 next split anyway. But if you're talking about MSI, I don't know, because when you're not challenged in your own region that much, it's really hard to do it in different teams.
They were challenged the entire year, though, until the very end.
Yeah, the very end, they got, I'm not going to say it was easy.
They definitely became a better team, and I think that Griffin slightly degraded towards the middle half of the season.
Feels bad for Griffin. Don't try Pantheon support again, please. That was the worst finals LCK I've ever seen in my life.
I don't know, man. The first one of SKT versus Rocks during that first series, where we thought Rocks would be a decent team and then they sucked.
Oh, the 2016 Spring Rocks.
Yeah, at the very least, we had indicators that Griffin wasn't going to be that great, but Rocks looked pretty decent going into the split. Then it just looked horrible.
Peanut lost to Blank.
Blank was really good that year, though.
Oh god.
And I don't even think that's the year I'm talking about. I don't think Blank was on. That was Bengi and Tom at that point.
Oh,
It wasn't
about
Rock's
GE Tigers when
Well,
Easy
obviously.
Hoon clapped him.
Well, yeah, I'm still talking about the very first seat.
Oh yeah, I remember when Easy Hoon was good. Great days. So that's pretty much it. Next, you wanted to do top MSI teams going in, like top 4, right?
I don't know. Well, if you have any kind of what's it called? What
Comments,
suggestions for video ideas? I did see one in there about the play-in stages, which I don't know enough about the.
I know like a fair amount, not too much.
I don't know enough about the wild card regions enough because there's not too many like English plays. I mean, what's it called?
Translations.
Yeah, so
Streams.
We'll see what we can do, but if you want to leave any suggestions that are possible.
Strong playing teams from what I know.
I'm not asking for your suggestions, man. I'll get you.
Fangwu Buffalo. Fangwu Buffalo. 1907 Fenerbahce.
He's gonna keep talking, so I'm gonna see
Chie.
this later.